looking at our route from the Keys down here all the way up to North Carolina. We thought about just going straight offshore, but it doesn't save us any time because right about here, there, the winds die. Right in the middle.
Just along the entire coast,
well,
in that area.
There's also, on Tuesday, there's a dead spot in here. And so going across there almost doesn't matter. But if we keep the coastal winds, we can actually make better time, it looks like. But anyway, we're going to stay near coastal. It looks like at the beginning of our journey, the winds are going to be, let's see, Sunday evening. We're going to have not quite a beam reach, but we're not going to be close hauled until we get to Key Largo. From Key Largo, we're going to have a beam reach, which is going to be really nice, and it's going to stay that way. 20-knot winds. And this beam reach will carry us all the way up. It stays a beam reach Monday. Tuesday, we start to have an area of low winds show up.
Are we going to get closer to the coast for that then?
Yeah, so we're going to follow this little bit of wind up here rather than try and cut across the middle of this. On Tuesday, by Wednesday, it's going to be pretty dead. But if we stay close to the coast, it'll be okay.
And off we go. What's the plan?
In here.
We are underway. We're not even quite sure where we're going yet. But after a summer of repairs, we need to take the boat out and have a sail.
So,
it's been a long day. We tried to go outside the Hawk Channel, way offshore into the Gulf Stream, and the wind was not cooperating. And we were only making about 1.5 knots. So we decided to come back on the Hawk Channel and motor at least till we get to Key Largo, and then we'll see how the winds are tomorrow. We had 31-knot winds, well, 25 gust 31. We had 6 to 8 foot seas with an 8-second period between the waves. So it was pretty spicy out there. And it wasn't worth fighting the wind for 1.5 knots. Right now, we're making about 4.5 knots right now into a 20-knot headwind.
fighting those waves wasn't fun.
Yeah. It was more than a little uncomfortable. Boat was fine, but some things just aren't worth it. And that much effort for 1.5 knots. Didn't want to do it.
dropped, and we are waiting out a potential storm coming through.
I'm covered in salt. We went all night long. We did a combination of motoring, sailing, and motor sailing. The winds were not very favorable. They were pretty much straight off the nose. I'll tell more later. I'm tired of not thinking. Morning, everybody. We're at anchor at Rodriguez Key. It was a long night last night, and we decided to pop in at about 7 o'clock this morning, just at sunrise, and put the boat to bed for a couple hours. I'm getting ready to send some email over the ham radio, let everybody know what's going on with us, and maybe post to the website. Hannah has made eggs and toast this morning, and this is how it looks after a night at sea. So we were all covered with salt. There was salt crystals in my beard, and there were salt crystals in my eyebrows.
Salt spots on my glasses.
Yeah, salt spots on the glasses. When we headed out from Marathon, we went out past the lighthouse at Sombrero Reef. And once we got out there, we left on the backside of a storm. So the storm had already passed, but we left on the backside of it. And when we got out into the deep water, into about 150-foot water, the waves picked up to 6 to 8 feet on an 8-second period with breakers. It was pretty spicy. Winds were 25, gusts 31 out of the east, and that was the direction we needed to go. So we were crashing through the breakers. It was kind of fun. Grace would climb up the wall, crash through the breakers. Salt spray would go everywhere from stem to stern. We were covered in salt water, and then she'd go down the other side.
The water in the gullies.
Oh yeah, the gunnels were full of water.
They were running back and forth because they didn't have time to drain out.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so the poor cat, Lila, was beside herself. She actually did get seasick. That was really sad. So after about 4 hours of that, we decided that it just simply wasn't worth it. We had made about 4 miles headway in 4 hours, and so it just wasn't worth the trouble. So we motored over back north to the Hawk Inlet, and we motor sailed the rest of the way to Rodriguez Key. We were able to put the sails up about halfway there, and with about a third of the Jenny up and the engine running, we were able to make 8 knots. And so we made it to Rodriguez Key in pretty good time. And the waves in the channel, of course, were a lot nicer. They were, 3 to 4 feet, but the winds were still 20, gust 25. And so we were fighting a pretty serious headwind, and it helped to have the Jenny up to pull us along, because with just the motor alone, we were only making about 4.5 knots. And once we put the Jenny up, about halfway, we were doing 8 knots for the rest of the way here. We're going to finish breakfast, and then we're going to start heading north. We're going to pass Miami and start heading north along the coast of Florida. We'll talk to y'all later. We're just underway. We just pulled anchor at Rodriguez Key, and we're heading north.
Well, there you go. I got a shower.
Nice cold shower.
Yep. That was just a little microburst. 35 knots.
What's happened so far? What have we done today?
First off, we just hit Bachi Shoal at 7 feet. So, and it wasn't on the map. We are almost to Coconut Grove. It's been a good day. We've been sailing at about 7 knots, 8 knots.
So we decided before we go offshore to stop at a nice little place called No Name Harbor.
And we're cleaning up all our lines, making sure that everything's neat, tidy, and ready for tomorrow. And I think this is going to be a multi-day run tomorrow. We're outside of the channel, so we're going to put up only the sails. We're not going to motor. Morning, everybody. We're just heading out from No Name Harbor. The winds are 19 knots, pretty much off our nose. We're just heading out into the ocean, and then we'll be turning north and putting the sails up. But for now, I usually don't sail inside channels. It's just too hard if something goes wrong to run aground, so we're motoring out. The water's gotten to be a really pretty color right now. We're just clearing the shelf outside of Miami into open water. It's about 19 knots of wind. We've got a second reef in. We're doing about 5 knots. One of the things about this boat is it has a really low freeboard, and so it feels like the water's like right next to you. It never seems to come and get you except when it splashes over the bow, but it feels like you can reach out and touch it. Well guys, we're about 10 miles out. We're heading east in the Gulf Stream tacking. Seas are about 4 to 5 feet with a 6-second interval between them. Winds are about 18 knots right now out of the northeast. It's a beautiful day on the ocean.
Hello y'all, nighttime update. I'm on the night shift right now. Autopilot's on. The outside looks absolutely gorgeous. We've got the main reef to 1 reefing. We've got the Jenny out, partially reefed. I wish there was a night vision mode on this phone. Otherwise, this is the best you've got for now. Anyway, I'll see y'all in the morning. Morning.
Good morning, everybody. It's just about sunrise. Sun's not up yet. There were pop-ups all night long. We've been making about 5 knots, plus the Gulf Stream, 6.5, 7. Winds have generally still been out of the northeast. We're heading almost due north now. We're about 12 hours out of Cape Canaveral. So we're about 5 miles off of Fort Pierce right now, and we had a problem with our turning block. It was under a lot of pressure, and this pin came up. That pin right there, and this was all bent sideways. So we rolled in the Jenny, and now we're going to take it apart and put it back together again tighter. So here's the pin that came loose, and there's a set screw. It looks like that set screw came out, and the pin was almost out. It wasn't screwed in at all, so it was wobbling back pretty far. It was about to come out. we'd have lost it. Breakfast, yogurt notes. So the cat got seasick a couple of days ago, and so we're washing the sheets. We put them in a bag and we threw them overboard. We used to do diapers this way years ago when the kids were little. It's quite a lot of resistance. We're doing about 5 knots. So the wind shifted on us. They shifted about 60 degrees all of a sudden.
Then they shifted again.
Yeah, then they shifted again. It's really variable winds right now. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So we need to go north, and the winds right now are like 010, almost due north. So we are now having to tack to get where we wanted to go, at the worst possible location. We opted to do our tacks closer to shore in hopes that the coastal winds will be different than the offshore winds.
Well, good night, y'all. I'm on a night shift once again. We are currently motoring, trying to get a little bit past Cape Canaveral because we experienced a headwind and absolutely no wind. We're hoping to get better wind conditions on the other side of Cape Canaveral.
Good morning, everybody. While we were motoring last night, we found another problem related to the install of our exhaust. And that was we had exhaust fumes in the boat. So Hannah had said that she noticed the floor was hot. I decided to lift the floor up and have a look, and sure enough, it was an exhaust leak. Let me show you where it was. We just pulled the floor up. I don't know if you can see the black right here. All along here, that's where the exhaust was leaking out. Over the last few days, I have really grown to love these teak decks. It's amazing. There's water all over them. Salt water down below is slippery. These are slippery, but if you leave that stuff gray like that, your feet just stick to it like glue. It's amazing. So walking around up there when the deck is pitching, when there's water splashing on it, they're amazing. So last night, we had pop-ups, little thunderstorms all over the place, one after another. Couldn't predict them. They were generally moving east to west, and we were generally moving north. The mainsail was reefed. Now, I like to reef at night, just as a matter of course. You can't see the pop-ups. You don't know when they're going to come. You don't know when the little storm is going to show up. So I generally reef the sails at night. It's a lot easier to reef in the daylight, and it's a lot easier to do it when you're not tired. So rather than waiting for the emergency to reef the sails, I just reef them before we get going. And to make a point, we had 13 to 20 knots of wind and even reefed, we were doing 7 knots. So why stress the rig for no good reason? If you're going 5 knots, 5 is nice and comfortable for a speed. When you've got waves coming, if you hit these waves at 7 knots, you come over the top of the wave and crash down the other side. It's no fun. The motion isn't comfortable. But about 4 or 5 knots, it's really, really comfortable. The standard had always been 100 miles a day. And if you're doing 5 knots, you're going to make 100 miles a day. So if you can do 4 knots at night, 5 knots, just do it. There's no reason to stress the rig for no good reason just because your sails can handle 20 knots. Yeah, maybe they can. But why do it over and over and over till you tear your sails when you could reef and still make your 5 knots? You don't have to always be racing the boat every single time, especially not when you're cruising. Do it safe, keep it easy, keep the boat upright. It's no fun to have rails in the water when you've got 6-foot waves. Hey y'all, we're just coming into St. Augustine. We're still about 5 hours out. Probably going to be there just after midnight.
So we finally made it to St. Augustine, and I wanted to show you guys what the cabin looks like after 4.5, but later on we'll probably call it 5 days outside. So you'll see there's some stuff on the ground. We have the water filter here because we ran out of filtered water, so we had to find a place to put it. The nav station and all the tools for it. Here we have the cat. I think she spent the whole time sitting right there unless she was eating. We've got the foods for the trip that we didn't eat as much as I thought we would. Most everything actually stayed upright. It always surprises me, maybe next time it won't, when all the bags that I have hanging up there just mush together into one. That is our cover for the table. It does a lot. It saves the table a lot of wear and tear. Here's our bedroom, which was okay, but I did have to do the new V-berth sheets on it in the middle of the trip, which was interesting. Here is our head. Over there is where I'm going to put the filter in just a few moments, but I wanted you to see first. And we just shove everything in there. Those are our shower bags. And here we've got Sam's bunk. Aft cabin was pretty well survived. And there's Wanda's bunk, and there's the aft cabin head. So all in all, we survived. We made it here, and now we're gonna have a few days to take a quick break. So everybody say bye.
We're still putting stuff away.
Say everybody say bye.
Bye.
It was a little spicy in the beginning, but the last day or two was really nice. The wind was very favorable. We had a beam reach almost the entire way, which was nice. Most of the time we were between 5 and 7 knots, even while reefed, which was pleasant. So it was warm. It was noticeable that the water temperature changed quite dramatically once we got out of the Keys. From probably about West Palm Beach north, the water was significantly cooler. And you could put your hand in the water and it actually felt cool instead of feeling like bathtub water. A couple of the nights I was actually huddled in the corner trying to stay warm when I was at the wheel. I think the 100-degree water makes a huge difference in the temperature, especially inside the boat. When you touch the side of the hull of the boat, it's 100 degrees versus, you know, you touch the side of the boat and it's 80. This is a significant difference. We're actually tucked in here to get away from a storm. There's a storm coming up the western side of Florida, and it's going to cross, and it's probably going to cross here, but we'll only see winds of maybe about 35 or 40 knots, and that will be fine for a little protected harbor like this. But I don't want to be caught offshore with that coming. So we're going to stay here for a few days, resupply, rest, and then we'll take the second half of our journey after the storm has passed. Anyway, it's midnight. Actually, it's 12:30, so good night for now.
Yep, good night. Yesterday, we noticed some antifreeze in the bilge. This antifreeze, Dad investigated this morning and found that there was a break around here.
It was right here. There was a little split. Came from over-tightening hose clamps over years. Now, because of the mechanics of the system, we could cut off an inch and rotate it up enough to fit on the old fitting. This side goes on the engine. This side goes on the heat exchanger. We'll put that on the engine. We'll rotate it up just enough, and all we needed was a half an inch. So that's what we're going to do, is put it back in.
We're a little far away from a hardware store or area where we can get these. So what we're going to have to do is just work with what we've got, make something that fits, and then try to hook it in until we can get a replacement. These heat-treated, pre-bent rubber hoses are actually very difficult to get.
Good morning, Sam.
Morning.
What are you up to this morning, Sam?
Watching the autopilot, making sure that we don't crash into anything.
You working on a story?
Yeah, I'm doing some writing for a character. And that's because it's nice and peaceful. It's not rocking around too much. We're on the ICW, so you'd expect it to be a little calmer.
We're hoping to make St. Mary's, Georgia by the evening. I don't know if we'll make it before sunset or not. I think the fishermen are mad at us because they're trying to keep it quiet and we're making all kinds of noise. We've seen 2 sets of pink flamingos this morning. That was kind of cool. Say hi, Hannah.
Hi, Hannah.
It's really pretty out here. We've seen a lot of fishermen, a lot of birds. Saw some dolphins. That was a little interesting. Anamashi is up ahead of us, about half mile. We're slowly catching up to them. We decided to leave the wind scoop up to get some nice cool air into the boat. The water is a completely different color, of course, and it's a heck of a lot easier to walk on deck. But I don't really like the motor sound, although it sounds good as far as the motor sounding good, but I prefer the silence.
up here. Look up here, Lila. Lila.
He says, I'm not looking at that camera. Lila.
You will look at this camera if I pointed at you.
You're not going to do it. Hey guys, we're on the ICW by Jacksonville Beach. We just passed a couple of marinas by the bridge. When there's a flats out there where there's several boats running around.
Really sad looking.
Yeah, there was some sad looking boats there, probably from hurricanes or something. But anyway, we've been making good progress. Right now we're doing 6.9 knots speed over ground, 5.5 through the water. But it's been an uneventful morning. I like the countryside better than the city side. There's some expensive homes along this river. Oh my gosh. Beautiful stuff. We're having lunch, by the way. Pasta salad. We're not pushing the motor too hard. We're going about 2,000 RPM. I'm pleased with the way the motor's running. Sounds good. It's not smoking.
There was a little bit of a scare over some of the night runs where we had the motor on.
Yeah, it looked like it was smoking. We later figured out it was actually just a little bit of salt spray coming up from underneath, and it wasn't actually exhaust. Well, we saw the same sort of cloud of stuff in the light, even with the engine off.
Yeah.
So the chain drive on our center board failed. There's a sprocket here, and there's a chain drive there. The chain is there, but the chain is broken. And the stuffing box is leaking just a little bit. What I want to make sure is that the center board is fully up.
That was a lot of moving the wrench, but we did finally find the stopping point.
The chain is broken. We have replacement chain, but for a different kind of chain. It's a very powerful motor, and when it got a little sideways, and there's the joiner chain. We know how many links, we know the size of chain, we can go get chain, we can put it on. But for now, we have no center board. I think something got stuck in the chain, and it made it go off the trolley, and then broke it. We got tossed around in the waves quite a bit, and there was some stuff that wasn't tied down quite as well as it should have been, and I think that that's what caused it. So we're gonna put this chain in a plastic bag, store it away, so that we can get the exact kind of chain. I wish we had some spare links. Good morning, everybody. It's 6:30 in the morning, and we are leaving Cumberland Island, Georgia. We're continuing up the ICW to Brunswick, Georgia, which is where we're going to get a marina for a few days. It's a beautiful morning. It was a beautiful night. It was quiet, winds. We didn't have any bugs. The anchorage was smooth. It was a perfect evening. We had our friends over from Anamashi, and we had drinks, and we had cookies, and we had coffee cake, and we sat around and talked until about, I don't know, maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And then we went to bed at a beautiful anchorage. And now we're up and on our way again.
I could have used about an hour more sleep.
You could have used an hour more sleep. Alrighty. Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Sam. You're gonna cut it out anyway, aren't you? We're nearly to Brunswick. This narrow channel, there's a really narrow channel right after the bridge. And we bumped once at 5.5 feet. I didn't see any depths on the depth sounder that showed any less than 6. but it's a super narrow channel, and you got to stay right in the middle of it. I'd recommend go ahead and getting bob track and following that exactly, because this thing is, and do it at high tide. We're doing it at, it's not quite low tide, but it's not high tide either. I can tell from the markers that we're about 3 feet lower. So this is definitely a high tide run. We didn't have time to wait. We have to get tied up before the storm hits. Hello everybody, we're getting ready for the hurricane that's going to hit Brunswick. I wanted to show you what we're doing. We've got 3 bow lines. These 2 keep us from going backwards. This keeps us from going sideways. This is our forward spring. It runs from the bow along the side back to the cleat on the dock. That keeps us from going forward. This is our aft spring, keeps us from going backwards. This is our other spring. This keeps us from going forward. We have a stern line and we have a backup stern line. So what we've tried to do is make sure that we had 2 ropes going each direction. We have 2 stern lines, we have 2 springs that keep us from going forward, and then we've got our 3 bow lines that keep us from going backwards. Sam is filling some water through our filter. The chafing gear that we're using is a combination of West Marine anti-chafing gear, and we've got old fire hose. You saw some on the stern as well. Our sail is all tied up, and the same thing with our mizzen mast. Additionally, we have this gray line that goes from here down to there. Gray line is holding the mizzen to one side. The boom is held to one side by moving our traveler. We're using some of the deck tie downs that we don't normally use. That's what we would normally lose with a jib, but it's a perfect place to catch your foot or your toe. We were using them to tie down our dinghy. As you can see, we've crossed ropes around the dinghy to hold it down, in addition to our typical tie downs. The other thing that we've done is we've just used this little blue line to tie our ropes so that they don't flop around so much. Right here. It's basically just wrapped around. Up forward, we've tied our roller furling so that it can't spin. But I thought I'd show you a little bit of our preps that we're doing. We were initially pretty worried because they were saying that the winds would be over 60, and now the latest forecast is that the winds will be peaking at maybe 45 or 50. We have also wrapped up our binnacle just to cover it up a little bit. I just tied it up with some sheet. Last night we had a problem with the water. We couldn't get our water pumps to work. It turned out to be a clogged filter. So we had to fix a filter at 4 in the morning the day before a hurricane. It's always something, huh? I guess that's enough for now, and we will keep you posted as to how the hurricane goes. We might even try and do something live. Goodbye, Brunswick Landing. It's been raining this morning. We got out of the slip just fine. This is a really cool boat. There's a go anywhere in the world boat.
Timbuktu. I remember
Yeah.
seeing it during the hurricane.
Big motor sailor. This is our anchor snubber. Hook it on the chain. You run one line through each fair lead. Line is holding it. Today was good. The inlet, just before we anchored, got a little bit spicy. We had maybe 3 or 4 foot waves on a 4-second period. It was mostly because the tide was going out and the wind was blowing in, so it stacked up a little bit on us. But it was fine. It was a long day. We motored the whole way, but it's beautiful country out here. So it was a good day. Had a little bit of rain a couple of times. We're going to stay the night here, and then we'll leave at sunrise in the morning and we'll head on to Savannah. This is Wapo Creek. It's about 50 miles north of Brunswick, Georgia.
Meow. Meow. Morning.
Good morning. So we had some troubles with our windlass. The switch, cheap plastic thing that we put in temporarily in the keys, that switch has failed. These little momentary switches are really cheap. It's the same switch that failed on our pumps, on our fresh water pump that we replaced. Anyway, so these little switches do not last well or very long. The second thing that happened is our throttle cable has been stiff for a very long time, and we found out why it's stiff. It's not stiff because of the cable, it's stiff because the throttle on the side of the little Kubota has, I guess, probably just been corroded. It's old, and so that throttle plate and arm need to be replaced. It's not expensive, it's an easy fix. It's 4 bolts and a gasket, so it's not hard, but we need to do that so that our throttle will move smoothly. And that's one of our projects for when we get back to North Carolina. I don't know if you saw the sunrise. It's a beautiful morning out there. Partly cloudy skies. The temperature's good. It's quiet. The tide is coming in, so I've got about a 1.5 knot current against us.
Good morning.
Morning. It's a beautiful, clear day. There was dew on the boat this morning. It's nice and cool. We just passed the Hinckley boat yard. I'm going to have breakfast.
Right down there is our stuffing box. We've been hearing a little drip from there. Too much of a drip, actually. So before we go offshore, whenever, we're going to resupply here in Beaufort, we're going to be tightening that up.
Here's what we tighten it with, and it is about that big down there. But there's really no room in there between the sides of the hull, so we can only move this about, I don't know, an inch at a time to loosen and tighten it. It's a real pain to get in there, but it does work. We were dripping about twice a second, and I thought that was a little excessive. We were emptying our bilge about every hour. Okay, so the chain for our centerboard is 420 motorcycle chain, and it was too long, so I counted the exact number of lengths that we had, ground one of the ends off. Then, because we didn't have a pin puller, we went ahead and set the chain on this vise, and we drove it out with a drill bit. Just pounded it, pounded it, and pounded it until we forced it through. Here's the little pin. So now we have 69 links on this side.
Nice.
Here's the master link, and we're going to put it back together. We have to put it on the chain drive for the centerboard before we put this back together. We'll never get it on. Okay, now we get to try it. So, new chain. Now we need some wire ties to clean up some of this stuff, get them out of the way of the chain. The route planning has been going very well, but whether it's on high speed, low speed, or sail, changes how it approaches the waypoints and how quickly it turns. So we've been doing a lot of adjusting, trying to get the autopilot working for motoring. But everything is beautiful scenery. We saw a couple of bald eagles. You see the yellow-green marshes, the dark greens, and then the blues of the sky, and the blues of the sky are reflected on the brown water. Everything is based on those colors. It's like this rainbow of greens and browns. There was a shoal with grass growing on it right in the middle of the channel. We drug the bottom just a little bit, either that or through the marsh grass, I don't know. Very narrow channel, very shallow. That was our second one today. We should have straight sailing in deep water from here on out. There's a couple of birds sitting on a snag out there in the marsh grass. We see that quite frequently.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. We're getting close to Charleston. It's about 9:20 in the morning. We're trying to make a bridge opening at 11:30, and I don't know. We're making about 5 knots. We came through at low tide, and so the tide is starting to come in, and we're fighting the tide coming in. So we're not making particularly good time. YouTube. We are leaving Charleston Harbor. It is sunrise. We're passing Fort Sumner right now. We were leaving at sunset 23 years ago. Actually, 22 years and 11 months ago. We're getting ready to hoist the sails. There's light wind right now and we're running downwind. We're on our way to Cape Fear. So that's our first stop, is Cape Fear. There's Hurricane Lee out there right now in the Caribbean that is threatening to hit North Carolina. And we're still trying to decide exactly what to do and where to hang out. So we might be right back down here, or it might go north. The problem with these things is you actually don't know where they're going to hit, and the models are just a best guess. So we're still trying to work that out. But for the moment, we're heading to Cape Fear. Hurricane's still a week and a half out. Anyway, it's a beautiful day. We're getting ready to hoist the sails. Butterscotch Scotchies en route to Cape Fear. We're on a broad reach port tack and doing about 5 knots. Good afternoon, everybody. We're just outside of Cape Romaine. We are 5 miles south of Cape Romaine. Wind has picked up. It went down about 11 o'clock. The wind dropped down to about 7 knots. It's picking back up to 11 now, and it's been clocking off our stern, and now it's a little bit more to our starboard side. We've gone ahead and we've put up wing and wing. We've got the Jenny pulled out on the starboard side. We've got a jibe preventer hooked up to our deck cleat on the port side. And she's running really well. We're doing about 5.6 knots.
Things have sped up partially because the wind has sped up.
Yeah, wind has sped up, and so it's a lot nicer. The waves have picked up a little bit too. We probably have 2-foot waves now. It's really pretty out here. Beautiful clear day. It's about it was 85 degrees inside the cabin.
It's beautiful out here. This water is a beautiful color. So much better than ICW.
Hello. Well, it is almost sunset. There's a beautiful sunset out there. We're wing and wing. Got 15 knots of wind. We're out of sight of land. Everything is wonderful. We're heading about 060 degrees just north of Georgetown, and we're en route to Cape Fear. Our friends are behind us about 1.5 miles. They're doing just fine. We're planning on Cape Fear in the morning at about 8 o'clock. Maybe 6. This was the first time that we've used the spinnaker pole. We tried to use it last time, but the halyard on the spinnaker pole broke. And so we had to fix it. We didn't get to do it. So we fixed it as soon as we got to Marathon, and we've been waiting for the opportunity to use it, and this is that opportunity.
We have reefed the Genoa and the main while maintaining the current sail configuration. And then after that, we managed to be getting about 5 knots speed over ground. We've adjusted the sail angle quite a bit to try and get us closer to our waypoint. I think nominally we're going to stop by Cape Fear and Wilmington.
We're about 2 hours from Cape Fear. The winds died. They're down to 5 knots, so it's not even worth trying. We can't keep the sails filled. So we took the sails down. We're going to motor the last 2 hours into Cape Fear. There's an anchorage in there, and we're going to stop and clean up a little bit and then continue our journey north. Coming into Wrightsville Beach right now. That's the exit to the ocean to head north. The Onslow Bridge is closed, so we have to go offshore, but we're going to take a break here at Wrightsville Beach. We're also going to have a look at the storm. There's a hurricane coming. Looks like it's going to go north, but we're going to have a better look at it. So I think we're going to anchor here for the night.
Quick update, y'all. We're several hours out from Beaufort Inlet right now. We decided just to skip Cape Fear. We took the ICW around where Frying Pan Shoals would have been hit and went back on the open ocean. We are currently making about 5 knots speed over ground. We've got the autopilot on. We've got the sails set as at jib and jigger. We're not quite out of sight of land. Good morning.
Good morning. It's not quite sunrise, and the last few hours we had 17 to 20 knot winds. We were double reefed, running jib and jigger, and doing about 5 knots. Seas were about 4 feet off the starboard aft quarter. We were on a broad reach. There were some thunderstorms that passed us on our starboard side and went ahead and went over the top of Beaufort. I'm glad that we didn't get in them. I was watching them. There was a lot of lightning. It wasn't making me happy. But they passed off to our starboard about 15 miles, maybe 20. Most of the night, I guess about 11 o'clock at night, the winds calmed down and they were running about 9 to 10 knots, and we were doing 3.5 knots. And then they freshened up about 3 in the morning to 15 gust 20. The tide is coming in right now, so we're going into Beaufort with the tide and the wind at our back, which is a lot nicer. Coming out of Beaufort against the tide or with the wind going against the tide is usually not fun. So we're going to make for New Bern. Hopefully we'll be at New Bern this evening, and we'll be at the end of our journey north. Then we can get into the yard at Oriental, get some work done, and then maybe make it up to the boat show. We'll see. We'd like to get to Annapolis. I don't know if we'll have time. I'm a little worried about the hurricane, but all of the models show it going north and impacting somewhere up between New York and Maine. So I think we're going to be okay. That would be Hurricane Lee. It's a Cat 4 right now, and of course these things are like tornadoes. This many days out, we don't know where it's going to hit. Centerboard is still down. I have to make sure not to forget to turn the centerboard up. I was watching the batteries with the autopilot, and we made it all night long, and we only used about 10% of our batteries. So I'm very happy that we can go for much longer. It used to be that in about 5 or 6 hours we had depleted our batteries. With our new lithium ion phosphates that we've got in there, looks like you can run all night long and it doesn't hardly even affect them. I don't like coming into harbors at night, so I'm glad that this worked out. Otherwise, we might have heaved to and waited for sunrise. Yeah, the sun will be up in the next half hour. It's already starting to get light. There's another thunderstorm out there behind us. I've been watching the lightning. This is how we like to run with our chart plotter. I keep the map up here, and we keep the wind and heading and everything down here. That's our bow thruster. I just wanted to mention, we're coming in with the current, with the winds, and the waves are 5 seconds apart. They're confused, and there's breakers. Waves are about 5 feet tall. And these inlets are really not to be trifled with. It can get a lot rougher than you might think. So don't let it scare you, but be aware that this is typical. I think almost every inlet that we've come in and gone out on, it's been like this. And if you're going against the current or against the winds, it can get really spicy. Some of the breakers are now 7 feet. The autopilot cannot keep up with this type of thing. And I also want to make a point. I charted a course right through the middle of the channel about 2 hours ago, and the channel markers do not line up. So always follow the real channel markers. Do not assume that the map is perfectly correct. We're coming up on Taylor Creek. Taylor Creek is the Beaufort anchorage. It's a really, really nice little anchorage. There's a nice little marina here. We're going to take a tour through really quick before we head out to Oriental. This was where we made our first home, as it were, after we left Charleston 23 years ago. Our boat hails from Beaufort. I like Beaufort. It's a cool place. There's a nautical museum, there's a pirate museum, there's a boat building museum, there's ice cream and fudge shops and a general store and a really great anchorage with a city dock.